clean bill of health from the other day?
No, Ryan Christie's a big doubt. Rolled his ankle, so yeah, we're going to give him as long as we can, but he's a doubt for tomorrow.
Albion Ajeti, are you going to appeal that?
Yes, I would imagine we would, yeah, absolutely.
What's your view on the incident?
It's a penalty. He's had contact to the back of his foot, ankle. Keeper's made contact. He's gone down. Referee's given a penalty. I don't see any simulation. Simulation is when there's no contact. There's obvious contact there. You can see that quite clearly. So I don't understand why these charges have been brought up against Albion. It's we don't agree with it at all. So yes, we will be appealing it, of course.
How big a surprise was it then? Did it come to a surprise that was the charge?
Yeah, massive surprise. Yeah, when you consider some of the other things that have been going on this season. So I don't see how it can be deemed when you're running at that pace, and the goalkeeper's given the referee a decision to make, and the referee's made the right decision.
In terms of the disciplinary procedure, what's your thoughts on it overall?
I don't have much thoughts on it. I haven't really sort of been in and around it this year. But on this charge, we feel aggrieved, and he will play tomorrow, and we will obviously defend it as vigorously as possible next week.
Neil, what's it? Sorry, Sheila, on you go.
What's Albion himself said about the incident?
Well, he said he got the contact, and he went down, and he got a penalty. So that's where he is with it, and that's where we are with it as well, from what we've seen on the footage.
In terms of this weekend's game, you seemed very pleased with the reaction from your players in midweek. Is that something that you hope you can build on now?
Yeah, we keep getting asked that, about building on things. We just have to take it game by game and, just keep looking to improve. And it was a far better performance, in terms of, presence on the pitch, body language, work rate, all those things that I didn't get at the weekend. So, yeah, I was very pleased, obviously, with a, comprehensive win away from home. And, again, we look to take that attitude and demeanour into the game tomorrow.
What do you think has been the cause behind maybe not getting as many points as normal at home this season?
Well, I mean, I've touched on it many times. I think the fact that there's no fans there is a huge detrimental effect on not just the players, but the club itself, And, there's plenty of other examples of it around the UK and Europe. Subconsciously, they just don't get that edge, that sort of drive from the supporters that you would normally get. So I think that has been a huge factor, in our home form.
Particularly after the weekend, Neil, did there have to be some home truths to some of the players about what's been going on and maybe their effort on the pitch at times? I
think so, yeah. I mean, that would be dereliction of my duty if I didn't think that was the right thing to do. I don't do it that often. Maybe in my first spell, I probably did a little bit more because I was a little bit more emotional in those days. But yeah, I think, when you lose a game at home and you dominate the game and don't affect the opposition as much as we should have, we don't press as high, we don't press as aggressively, we don't stop crosses, all the basics of the game that we're missing. I think that has to be, an end point for the team, really. And I've got to come out, yes, take responsibility for the performance, but, the players have to be accountable at times as well.
How frustrating has it been for you? Obviously, the buck always talks to the manager. People ask about your team selection, whatever. But when you look so good in training during the week, and then when you're watching a performance on the pitch, thinking, why is this?
Yeah, it's just, it's a strange one, and this season's brought up a lot of strange anomalies. So it's very difficult to sort of analyze it, really, when you look at again, you talk about body language and energy, of all those things that was, lacking at the weekend for some reason. But we got it back, 2 or 3 days later without having to do anything miraculously on the training ground.
In terms of Motherwell, what do you expect from them? Obviously, new manager in as well, and they're coming into the game on the back of 2 wins.
Yeah, I mean, Graham, he had a stellar career as a player, great longevity in the game, and he's done very well in his coaching career so far. I think they've changed their setup a little bit, tweaked it a little bit, and certainly defensively it's set players to look a little bit more organised. They've gone from man marking to zonal, so he's just tweaked little things here and there, and they've got a decent squad of players, and the front three could be a handful for anybody in this division.
Picking up on what you were talking about, and I know you've touched on it many times with regards to not having the fans in. If you look at the stats in Premier League in England, for example, there's been more away wins this season than I think there ever has been. And it's one of those scenarios obviously every club in the land's having to deal with. But do you look at that even more so with your club as a reason why some of the form has been spotty at home, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can't put any other factor on it, Charles. I look at the training regime that we had from this time last year to now. It's very similar. The personnel's very similar as well. Look at Liverpool's last 2 home games. Haven't been unbeaten in 68 home games. I think it has definitely affected the team in a way that we probably couldn't have envisaged. And you miss that roar, you miss that edge, you miss that sort of... That's the reason why you play football. When you come to a club like this, you want to play in front of thousands and thousands of supporters who either can inspire you or can motivate you or can help dig you out of a difficult spot at times. And, all those factors are missing this season. And that's the inevitable reality. People will say, well, other clubs have handled it better, and they have, but we've looked deep into it and analysed it as best we can, and I'm pretty convinced that even the build up to the game, where you got the noise and the atmosphere building, and then the crescendo at the start, all that's been gone this year, and I do feel that that's definitely had a detrimental effect on performances and results.
We don't know what's going to happen in the next few weeks and months if the pandemic allows fans to get back into grounds for next season. But if it doesn't, is there anything that you can do as a club differently, do you think, to kind of try and maybe get the players psychologically, around this obstacle that appears to have been in their way this year?
It's a very good question, and something that I'm thinking about long and hard. If this situation, certainly with no supporters in the stadium, doesn't change, then we're going to have to look to find different ways of approaching the game and be more positive and get more positive results. But I think it's a very fair question.
Neil, can I ask you about the Scottish Cup this season? Obviously, it's a trophy that you want to, a competition that you want to try and defend. That there are some doubts as to whether it will go ahead, given the current situation. What are your thoughts on that? Presumably, you want the footballing authorities to do all they can to ensure that it does go ahead, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they will, but if they can't, then there's not a lot I can do about that, or the club can do about it. But it wasn't. We won the cup from last season. This season, it's not ideal. It's very, very surreal, very, very different. So if we could avoid that scenario happening again, it would be, great, and we can prepare as best we can for that competition.
Would you maybe be of the mindset, because you've talked about the fans and how important they are to your club, if they weren't to be returning, well, they probably aren't going to be returning for this season, would you be of the mindset then to maybe postpone the cup until fans are back?
No, I mean, if we could play it this season, great, because then you're going to have another sort of backup of fixtures for the following season, and then you're looking at your squad, you're looking at your fixtures this season, preparing for games that come up and lie ahead, going into next season. With supporters, we can't predict that, Jane. We're all hoping that when the summer came around and we get into August, we were hoping that this time of the season, we would have supporters, back in the stadiums. That has not been the case. So it's very, very difficult to predict if and when supporters are going to be back in the grounds. And I think it's a huge miss, not just for Celtic, not just for Scottish football, looking at the games all around Europe and the UK, it's soulless at times. And I think the players are doing all they can to try and make the games as entertaining as possible, but it's a huge factor. And the longer it goes on, the more draining it gets for players, I think.